And so in any event, when I was hitting my bottom and was attempting suicide, I was completely emaciated, like a concentration camp kind of victim, like I hadn't eaten in a very, very long time. And I had long hair, a lot of my teeth were gone, my skin was gray, and just crazed, and living in absolute squalor. And that's where it took me. So on my last night out, I'm hitting the floor and about to go unconscious, and I called out to God for the first time in my life. I was not a person, the only thing I ever went into a church for was to smoke crack in a confessional booth if I was out and about the city, because it was a nice, dark, private place to do that. And I called out. I was not a foxhole prayer person. I called out to God for help, and I thought of Richard, who I hadn't seen in a very long time. And I'll give it to you.
Well, I've developed the habit of asking God, when I'm not doing anything for myself, I take a moment of silence and I pray for somebody else to help, to make use of it. And it had been one of those times. I mean, I had a couple of national commercials running, and buckets of money were coming into the mailbox, and I was sitting on the couch and I wasn't doing a damn thing. And I said, well, this is just not getting it done, so I need somebody to help. And I asked for that prayer, and within less than 24 hours, the phone rang. It was this guy. And it's a little weak voice that I can hardly recognize. He used to call me the Colonel because we did My Fair Lady for so many months.
All over the globe. I was Higgins and he was
And I played the Colonel in the, he gets all the punchlines and doesn't talk much, which is perfect. Say, is this the Colonel? And I said, who is this? And it kind of sounded like someone I would know, and no one else would call me the Colonel unless they worked with me. And he says, it's Gary. He says, can you come with me? And I said, where are you? And I came back.
So
He raised me up.
I went unconscious, and Richard broke through my front door and got me down 4 flights of steps, took me off to the hospital and then to rehab. And then when I came out, he became my first sponsor in recovery and brought me into the rooms. I tell this story hundreds of times a year, and I can't not get emotional about it. I'm so full of gratitude for being sober and for Richard in my life. So we're very close, and he saved my life. So now, 16 years later, we're traveling the globe playing the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, if you don't believe in miracles, you got to be kidding me.
Wow.
If Jesus, Mary, Joseph, all the angels, the great pumpkin, the great unicorn, Buddha, all of them came all at once to the foot of my bed 16 years ago and told me this was going to be happening, I'd have said, I mean, you got to be kidding me. I wouldn't have believed God himself if he'd appeared and told me this. So today, we got involved with the off-Broadway play Bill W. and Dr. Bob, written by our dear friends Samuel Shen and Janet Surrey, and produced the national tour. Now it started for us down here in Florida. I took a job, long story, I got sober, I ended up becoming, I didn't go back into show business, I ended up becoming a stockbroker and worked on Wall Street. I was in the South Tower on 9/11, watched a lot of people die. I escaped from the building, had an amazing healing that happened in my body because I had just gotten a death sentence from the doctor about another illness that I had, which was healed on that day. And that's a whole nother story. You'll have to come see the show, and you'll learn the rest of that story, like Paul Harvey said. The rest of the story. So I checked into a monastery in Kentucky and tried to take a vow of silence, which I didn't do very well, and they asked me to leave, but I did stay for a good long time, but that didn't work But the Father Abbot said, you know, some of us are called to whisper and some of us are called because we're ram's horns, and you're definitely the ram's horn type, and you need to go shout about it and bear witness. So that's what I'm doing. So I committed my life to that. And shortly after that experience, I received a call. Somebody wanted to hire me to play the sheriff in the best little whorehouse in Texas, and I did a national tour, and I got back into show business, but I had an epiphany that working in theater and show business and film and television could be, instead of about my personal ambition and aggrandizement and career, that it could be public service, that it could be a healing tool, that it could be a ministry, that being in theater could be a ministry, and that being an actor could function in the role of a priest, telling a parable about the human condition, using song and ritual and so forth. And my heart became full of this and passionate about it. So I went on this national tour of Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And then I got a call from a dinner theater down here in Florida, South Florida. And they said, we heard you played the sheriff, we'd like you to come. You know, it's kind of funny from the monastery to the whorehouse, but God's got a great sense of humor. So I ended up coming down, I took the job, I didn't know why, and I meditated on it. At the same time, I got a call to play Reverend Shaw in the national tour of Footloose. And I'm like, oh, I could either play the sheriff in the whorehouse, or I could play this priest. And I met it, and the priest role was for a lot of money, and the dinner theater was a very little amount of money. And I'd never done dinner theater before, but I knew somehow I needed to go back into show business. So I meditated about this, and every time I meditated, I would see my feet in flip-flops. And I said, I'm going to Florida. I don't know why, I'm going to Florida. I'm sure I'll find out soon. Was already on that meeting. Just listen, just suit up, show up, and just say yes when you get the marching orders. So the marching orders were clear to me, so I came down here to Florida. The very first day I was in Fort Myers, I was interviewed by Florida Weekly Magazine, and I shared about my alcoholism. And they wrote all about it, because, you know, the press loves that. You know, it's very salacious, and they like that sort of thing. So, and that's great, because it can help somebody. And in fact, the owners of this large entertainment company were sick and suffering alcoholics, and they read the article. I was actually working for them, but had not met them. And so they invited me to church and wanted to talk about this inspirational article. And early in the morning at church on a Sunday morning, they were skunk drunk. And I told them I really didn't care to talk to alcohol. I didn't have time for that in my life anymore. But if they were ever sober, I'd be happy. And they were just livid with this because they were not happy drunks at all. And rageful, as a matter of fact. Oh, you work for me, that kind of thing. So I said, well, whatever. All I know is my primary purpose is to help another sick and suffering alcoholic achieve sobriety. So that's got to come before working for you, because I'm really not working for you. You're just a channel. You're one channel, but the source of my good is God. So I got to go with God here. So they were furious. So anyway, a couple days later, the phone rang, and the patriarch of this company was. He said, "All right, it's 11:30. I haven't had a drink yet. Meet me at the Edison Country Club. I know you're off today." I said, "Okay, I will." So I did, and we talked about alcoholism all afternoon. And what do I got to do to get sober? I said, "You go to A." "Oh, I could never do that. Everybody'd find out." I said, "Well, everybody in town knows you're falling out of the church pew. Likelihood they'll probably hire a brass band and put a medal around you." So, anyway, he wasn't going to do that. Not going to have that. But he said, "Do you know the play Bill W. Dr. Bob? I read about it in there's a journal for theatrical managers and producers, and ATPAM is the organization. It was in their journal. It was off-Broadway." He said, "I read about that. I was very intrigued. Maybe if I produced that play, maybe I'd learn something." I thought, "That's a really good idea. I'll direct it, you'll co-direct it, but you got to read the big book of AA so you know what it's about." He was like, "I think that's kind of sneaky, but okay." So, because I convinced them that every drunk in Lee County, Florida would come to see the show, and they normally can't sell a ticket in the dead of August in Florida because nobody goes to the theater. They're just too hot out and everybody's gone. You know, all the snowbirds are gone. So as a producer, that appealed to them. In any event, we began the production. And I flew to New York immediately, and I said, "Guess what, Richard? I'm playing Bill W. You're going to play Dr. Bob." And we hired a cast of all people in recovery. And this gentleman, I put it into my contract that if he ever showed up in his own theater drunk with me directing this show and this group in recovery, that the whole thing was canceled, goodbye, and I'm going back to New York. And so he white knuckled, and he got sober. And then his wife started coming to rehearsals, and she got sober. And that play helped to heal them. Because the message is the message. No matter how it comes to you, the message is the message. And it's powerful. Whether it comes to you from a room, or a 12-step call, or at your hospital bed, or from the stage. And I saw that happen. So we did the production. We ended up taking it all around the country. We took it to the 75th International AA Convention in San Antonio. We received hundreds and hundreds of letters from people who had healing miracles while watching that show. And it became clear to Richard and I that this was our cause and our ministry. And we ended up becoming part of a film that was being shot in San Antonio for Hazelden Foundation. I'll tell you a little bit about that, something I'm working on now with Phil. We're moving through that process and so thrilled about it. In any event, we were donating a portion of proceeds to local recovery organizations in every city that we went to, and everybody wanted us to bring the show, but to bring a large off-Broadway show is very, very expensive. We took it to Dartmouth to start, at Dartmouth College, where Dr. Bob was an alum, to begin a symposium, begin to create a dialogue on binge drinking in American campuses. And it was very successful. It cost close to 70 grand to bring the show for 5 days, for 5 shows. And so that sticker price is out of reach of a lot of organizations. So Richard and I created this new piece called Pass It On, an evening with Bill W. Dr. Bob, just the 2 characters. It is set as though you're in an old-time recovery meeting, 1949, with Bill W. and Dr. Bob as the keynote speakers. They share their experience, strength, and hope, dramatize some scenes where the lights change and you're now in the past and you see them drunk and a mess and depressed and wanting to die, and then you watch them get sober. There's a scene where you see them meet at the Gatehouse in 1935 in Akron, at the Cyberlin Gatehouse. And I'm from Akron, Ohio, by the way. And I'm really proud of that today. In fact, Akron was the first, it was on Ardmore Street, where Dr. Bob's house is, was the first time a police officer ever stood on my neck. That's true. I'm really proud of that.
Now, right those later.
Right on Ardmore Street. So,